So, not being in school, not being in work, back in 2003, I started learning what I had to. And not long after I stopped working at the grocery store, I ended up moving to Louisiana. And I guess that'd be right around 11 years ago to the day. I remember getting there on 4th of July. So I guess I've had a lot of crazy Independence Days. The one Jack Hare right after that. But learning what I needed to learn. And for the first time, I started going to the health food store, buying groceries there, because I thought maybe, health food would give me better health. It's kind of a funny idea. And the other thing was living with the grandparents in their 80s when I was 18 turning 19. I went from being a grocery store cashier who would see the same old people every day just to get them the groceries to being with the old people all the time. And as sick as I was with the inflammatory bowel disease at that point, my own needs were a minor concern to me. What I really wanted was to be able to share the relief that I was discovering for myself with the elders. And it just wasn't feasible at that time. The only thing that I had available to me was stuff that was in the medical marijuana storefronts already. And none of it would have been good enough for my grandparents. So what I ended up having to do was minimize the damage of what he was taking, my grandfather. I mean, in Sacramento, my grandpa would keep us up like every third or fourth night with the hallucinations that he'd have while he was detoxing off of morphine. It was terrible. The doctor had prescribed him. He was taking extra strong Vicodin 6 times a day. No, 4 times a day, and he was taking slow release morphine twice a day. So what would end up happening is he'd go 8 hours between Vicodin doses sometimes when he was taking the time-release morphine, and then when Grandma would ask him how much pain he was in, does he need 2 pills or 1? Well, of course the answer was that he wanted 2, so he'd go from being detoxed to taking 2 of the strongest Vicodin that there was, and no one realized what was going on until I explained it to them, that the Vicodin and the morphine weren't acting on the same receptors and it'd be more effective for him to take a half pill 6 times a day every 4 hours than it would have been for him to take a whole pill like twice a day and 1 pill like another 2 times a day with an 8-hour gap in between 2 of those pills. So what I ended up having to study to solve that problem is, I later came to find out it's called the therapeutic width of the medications. And how this applies to cannabis is not very complicated. Most of us learn about the therapeutic width when we're learning to drink. And to explain therapeutic width very succinctly, it's that point where you're having fun drinking before you've had too much and you get sick. And if that doesn't explain what therapeutic width is, we might not be talking about the same thing. But that was one of the first things that I had to learn. That it wasn't something from a book a school teacher given me or part of the job at the grocery store. I really needed to know this stuff because of how deeply it was affecting my life. Well, our lives, but when you're 19, it's all your life, you know.